my channel. This is OCB Movie Reviews. My name is Brinker, and leading up to Spider-Man No Way Home coming out next week, I decided to have a week talking about all the Spider-Man movies that I haven't reviewed. I have reviewed the Tom Holland ones like Homecoming and Far From Home, but I have not reviewed the Sam Raimi trilogy and the Mark Webb movies, so I decided this is the perfect week to review these movies because I'm so pumped for No Way Home. It's one of my most anticipated movies of the year, and since all the villains from the Rami movies and the Webb movies are coming in that movie, and possibly Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire will probably return in the movie, I think it's the perfect time to refresh our memories back into these movies. So of course, to start this off, let's review the Sam Raimi trilogy, because Sam Raimi trilogy with the Dark Knight trilogy is one of my favorite trilogies of all time. I love the Spider-Man trilogy so much. I grew up with it as a kid, and I still love it today. Yep, even 3, but we'll get to 3 later. But let's start with the movie that started this trilogy off, and that is Spider-Man. This movie came out in 2002. This movie is directed by Sam Raimi, who directed the Evil Dead movies before this movie. And this movie stars Tobey Maguire, Kirsten Dunst, James Franco, Willem Dafoe, Cliff Robertson, Rosemary and J.K. Simmons. Spider-Man has been one of the biggest impacts on my life. I remembered as a kid, I loved the 60s show, I loved the toys as a kid. Spider-Man has been one of my favorite superheroes as a kid. This movie came out in 2002, so I was 2 years old when this movie came out, so obviously I didn't see this movie in theaters, and Spider-Man 2 in theaters. I haven't seen Spider-Man 2 in theaters either. So I literally watched this movie way later on. Probably I watched this movie when I was 6. And guys, Spider-Man was a big impact as a kid. I loved this movie as a kid. Throughout on, I loved this movie so much as a kid. Like, it's so nostalgic for me. But here's the thing. Does Spider-Man still hold up to this day? I think that's no shit for that. Spider-Man is fantastic. It's a great film that sets up this world, that sets up the characters, and it's one of my favorite origin stories put into film with Batman Begins. I like when movies set up worlds. You know, like Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, or Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. I like movies that set up worlds that the adventure is going to live in, and Spider-Man does a great job of introducing the world of Spider-Man. Introduce all the characters, introduce Peter Parker, Uncle Ben, every single character in this film, even the first villain, Norman Osborn / Green Goblin, played by Willem Dafoe. This is a great superhero origin story. I loved this movie from start to finish, guys. This movie really does hold up to this day. Even though it is quite cheesy at parts, there are some one-liners in this film that are quite cheesy.
Are you in, or are you out?
It's you who's out, Gobby. Out of your mind.
Wrong answer!
If you pass down the side, this is a great movie. This is a great superhero movie. I think the best thing about this trilogy, especially this movie, is the casting. Spider-Man has some of the best casting that I've ever seen in a superhero film, especially Tobey Maguire as Peter Parker / Spider-Man. This is my favorite on-screen Spider-Man and Peter Parker of all time, and I think everyone would agree with me. Everyone loves Tobey Maguire as Peter Parker and Spider-Man. I love Tom Holland, don't get me wrong, and Andrew Garfield I did like, despite from the movies not being as great as they were, but Tobey Maguire is always my favorite Peter Parker / Spider-Man. He plays the character of Peter Parker so well, this nerd kid from high school who has been bullied so many times, and you see how this nerd became this hero after the spider bit him and get all these abilities, and learning about responsibility and becoming basically a man, and that's what I liked about this film. You see a hero's journey throughout the film. Tobey Maguire is just fantastic as Peter Parker. You believe that he's this nerd, you feel such sympathy for him when he gets bullied, you feel sympathy for him when Uncle Ben dies, but you really follow him along in this journey to become Spider-Man. And I think Tobey Maguire, his character presence is so likable that you really do like Peter Parker, and you really feel for him, you root for him to become this character. Tobey Maguire is just fantastic in this movie. That's really no shit for that. I think everyone would agree with me that Tobey Maguire is the best Peter Parker / Spider-Man. Also, the rest of the cast, like Kirsten Dunst as MJ in the film. And I know a lot of people saying, oh, she's just a damsel in distress. In this movie, when you rewatch this movie more, her character was very, very interesting. She lives with this abusive family. Her father's very abusive. She basically uses fun as like a defense mechanism to try and basically, you know, become this fun girl and become happy. But obviously she has dreams. She wants to act, she wants to get out of her family and act. And I really fell for MJ's character. I really believe in her character. And Kirsten Dunst, despite for her screaming most of the time, she is good in this movie playing this character because you liked MJ, and the chemistry between Peter Parker and MJ in the film was really well done in this film. you like them two together. Like, I love this backyard scene where they're talking about their dreams, and you see MJ as a character. She's not just this fun, popular girl. She has personalities, and I really loved how their chemistry collides in the film. James Franco as Harry Osborne was also really good in this film. He is much more of a main focus in the other films. This film is more of a setup to his character. I really liked his chemistry with Peter Parker in the film. You believe they're best friends, and his arc in the film that he is jealous of Peter Parker because of Norman Osborn, his father, treating him like more of a son to him. And I believe in James Franco in this film, and he is really, really good in this film. But yeah, speaking of Norman Osborn, we gotta talk about Willem Dafoe as Norman Osborn / Green Goblin. Fantastic in this film. A great villain and a great start villain to this trilogy. In fact, Willem Dafoe actually really wanted to play this role, and Sam Raimi wasn't planning to pick him at first. But when Willem Dafoe is like getting in this film, you can see how passionate he is playing this character because he really wants to play this role. And in this film, it really shows. He is fantastic in this film as the Green Goblin. He is just menacing in this film. And I don't give a shit what people say. I like the costume. Yes, it looks cheesy, looks Power Ranger-y, but it's very nostalgic to me. And it came out in 2002. So I don't mind the costume looking that cheesy as it is. Out, am I? And back to the casting, we have Rosemary Harris and Cliff Robinson as Aunt May and Uncle Ben. Great casting. Like, this movie has a fantastic casting in general, especially Cliff Robinson as Uncle Ben. That whole scene where Peter and him are arguing in the car, with the car with great power comes great responsibility, is well freaking done, and you buy Uncle Ben in this film. You love the chemistry between Peter and Uncle Ben. When you find out he dies in the film, you really feel for Peter in the film, because Uncle Ben is basically the father that everyone needs, teaching people about how to be a man and how to be responsible for whatever they have. And Cliff Robinson, rest in peace, because you bring us the best Uncle Ben. Rosemary Harris is also fantastic as Aunt May, but of course, we gotta save the best to last. J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson. No wonder he is returning in the MCU, because no one can replace J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson. Like, there's no word to say to J.K. Simmons. He is fantastic in this role.
No jobs, freelance. Get me a nice box of Kirsten bait, that's all I can do. Get out of here!
But what is mostly great about Spider-Man is Sam Raimi's direction with this film. I think he's a masterful filmmaker. With the camera shots and all that stuff, especially when you see Spider-Man swinging in the film, you really feel like you're swinging with him because how great the camera work is in this film. And this film is a pretty light and colourful superhero film. Like, the MCU films does get close with the lightness, like with most of the films, but this film is a light and colourful film that looks like it rips out the pages of the comic books. And of course this movie does get dark when it needs to be. Like, of course, Uncle Ben's death and when Spider-Man's going out to kill Uncle Ben's killer. It does have dark moments, but this film has a sense of wonder and adventure to it. And I love how light and colourful and just fun this movie is overall. It's a fun superhero movie. But what's good about this film also is that Sam Raimi is good at balancing between light and dark when he needs to be. Like the final battle, especially between Spider-Man and the Green Goblin. Spider-Man gets his ass kicked. Like, this film gets really, really dark when it needs to be because you get to see Spider-Man getting brutally punched by the Green Goblin, and that scene was really, really well done. Like, I love that scene because you see that some superhero films can be light, but it has to be dark at parts as well. It shows how realistic and how groundbreaking a superhero movie can be. But the action is fantastic in this film. It's really fun, and what's good about the film also is that this film has a lot of stunt doubles. It's not like a CGI fight for most of the part. It gets CGI, of course, when it needs to be, but this film is mostly very practical. That's something that we haven't seen in a superhero film basically in a long time, and I think Sam Raimi knows what he's doing. You can see how passionate he is making this film. The action is really well done. This film gets very emotional at times, and of course, we gotta talk about Danny Elfman's score in this film. If they bring the score in No Way Home, I'm gonna cry my ass off. Because this is one of the best superhero scores of all time. It brings tension, it brings excitement, it brings adventure. This score alone, I could listen to every single day. It just makes me want to be a superhero because the score is the perfect superhero score. It's great throughout the trilogy. It's probably the superhero score that I'll always remember throughout this day. Spider-Man has a great story, following a coming-of-age story with this teenager learning about responsibility, becoming Spider-Man, becoming a man, basically. From start to finish, it starts from where it needs to be and ends where it needs to be. And Spider-Man pulls all those things off perfectly. Spider-Man, in my opinion, is a great start to this trilogy. I love Spider-Man still to this day. I could watch this movie and Spider-Man 2 all in one go, because this movie balances perfectly with the characters, the origin story, the action, the villain, the score, the casting especially. This whole movie does a great job of introducing this character, and this is a great start to the Spider-Man trilogy. I love Spider-Man, it's fantastic, still holds up to this day, even though there are some cheesy moments in the film. It's light, it's a light-hearted superhero film, it goes where it needs to be. I am going to give Spider-Man an A-. So guys, that is my review for Spider-Man. Look forward to my review of Spider-Man 2 coming up very, very soon. But guys, let me know what you think of Spider-Man. Let me know in the comments below if you like the movie, hate this movie, do you think this movie holds up, and what is your favourite movie in the Sam Raimi trilogy? Let me know in the comments below. Make sure you guys follow me on social media links down below, Facebook, Stardust, Instagram, Twitter, and Letterboxd. Keep contact with me, and make sure you guys subscribe to my channel for my latest movie reviews and other movie related content, and have a nice day.